Chapter 1. Limitless technique. In a flash, everything around him twisted like a nightmare luxury, bled into filth. Soft beds became cold, rusted bars, and the warmth of silk bodies was replaced by the stench of sweat and decay. Alex's breath hitched. Where was he? Then clang! A harsh metallic screech cut through the air like a whip, and his body jerked back, seized by terror, not his own. Muscle memory screamed danger. Out of the murky light, hulking silhouettes emerged, their shadows dragging something thick and murky between the cells. One of them paused at his bars, eyes gleaming with cruel amusement. Well? The boss, a bald brute cloaked in ink and menace, shot Alex a chilling look before growling to his crew. Don't touch him yet. Trade time's near. If he dies, the organs won't stay fresh, and the price tanks. A lackey snapped to attention, nodding furiously. Then shot Alex a venomous glare, fingers brushing a wound as he hissed, "You got lucky, punk." As the gang vanished into the shadows, Alex's heart pounded organ trafficking. The ugly truth slammed into him like a freight train. And then, pain. Blinding, brain-burning pain, as shattered fragments of memory erupted in his skull like a storm of broken glass. The original owner of this body was named Alex Lockagist, a regular college guy until about a month ago when something snapped wide open inside him. Fire roared. The building collapsed. And yet Alex walked out untouched, cloaked in the sudden spark of a mutant gift. But survival was only the beginning of the nightmare. Days later, his own parents turned on him, horrified by what he had become, tossing him out like garbage. Then came the hunter silent, brutal, relentless sand. One mistake landed him in the hands of street predators from Hell's Kitchen, locked in a dungeon that reeked of death and secrets. The man who caught him, a towering figure with eyes like iron and fists to match never, forgot the bite. Alex sank into his arm, and for that, he made sure Alex never forgot the pain. Beneath his torn shirt, the flesh told of brutal story scars. Blood, rot. Alex figured the original Alex didn't survive that kind of care. But that wasn't even the worst part. Not by a long shot. The original owner of this body was named Alex Lockagist, a regular college guy until about a month ago when something snapped wide open inside him. Fire roared, the building collapsed, and yet Alex walked out untouched, cloaked in the sudden spark of a mutant gift. But survival was only the beginning of the nightmare. Days later, his own parents turned on him, horrified by what he had become, tossing him out like garbage. Then came the hunter silent, brutal, relentless, and one mistake landed him in the hands of street predators from Hell's Kitchen, locked in a dungeon that reeked of death and secrets. The man who caught him, a towering figure with eyes like iron and fists to match never, forgot the bite. Alex sank into his arm. And for that, he made sure Alex never forgot the pain. Beneath his torn shirt, the flesh told of brutal story scars. Blood, rot. Alex figured the original Alex didn't survive that kind of care, but that in just 1 week, the gang planned to trade with other underground syndicates, and this batch of human cargo would be butchered like cattle for their organs. Worse still, this twisted nightmare was set in a world Alex knew all too well: mutants, megacorporations, and chaos. Wasn't this the Marvel Universe, a place where survival itself was a gamble? Even if he dodged the imminent bloodbath, how was he supposed to outrun the cosmic finger snap that could wipe out half the universe? No way was Alex betting everything on a coin toss. But was this the cinematic version or the ink-stained pages of the comics? If it was the former, maybe just maybe he had a shot. But if it was the latter, Alex felt a chill run down his spine. And as for the original body's so-called powers, please, if that ability had any real teeth, he wouldn't even the worst part. Not by a long shot. 6 Eyes Level 1, 1/100th. Grants 360-degree long-range vision, energy flow perception, and hyperdynamic sight for precise manipulation. Template fusion rate, 1%. Boost fusion to unlock new powers. Energy points, 0. Reach 100% to receive a new character template. Alex blinked and the world flipped. Suddenly, his vision expanded into a crystal-clear dome around him, every speck of dust suspended midair like frozen sparks. Glowing blue lines danced in his sight, threading across space and leading directly to a dim wall lamp. Energy he was seeing, raw energy. A rush of realization hit him. This was 6 Eyes, his first power, and his first template was Gojo. Even if the name didn't hit his heart anymore, in his world, Gojo was still king tier. If he could master even a piece of that power, breaking out of this hellhole wouldn't just be possible, it'd be inevitable. The coolest part? Gojo Satoru's powers were straight up insane. When the system kicked in, Alex felt a surge of hope blast through the darkness. But before anything else, he had to break out of this hellhole. That's when the echo of heavy boots hit the concrete. Here came that same guy from earlier, the one Alex barely remembered, Jim. He swaggered up to the bars, twisted a nasty grin and growled, "Didn't think you'd last, punk. I'll let you breathe one more night. Tomorrow, you get your real welcome." Then, without breaking eye contact, he unzipped and relieved himself into the metal bowl on the floor, the stench hitting like a slap. But Alex didn't flinch. He stared back with dead, icy eyes. That calm, that indifferent, in a grim twist of fate, college student Alex Locke wakes up shackled in a hellish version of the Marvel Universe, caught in the grip of an underground organ trafficking ring. But just when all hope seems lost, the multiversal character template system kicks in, gifting him the powers of Gojo Satoru. With 6 eyes gleaming and Limitless unleashed, Alex turns the prison into a training ground and begins carving a bloody path to freedom. His first taste of power comes with Curse Technique Blue, used in a silent execution that marks the birth of his transformation. When he finally breaks out, annihilating the gang, his presence ripples across the city, drawing the eyes of S.H.I.E.L.D., Kingpin, and even Spider-Woman. Gwen Stacy meets him in battle against the Lizard, where his devastating upgraded blue not only crushes his enemy but exposes his strange brand of justice. As his 6 eyes evolve and military drones close in, Alex unlocks Reverse Curse Technique and stuns the world with his sheer might, powerful enough to rival Omega-level mutant. Ambushed and wounded by spatial attacks, he retaliates with the full force of Red, vaporizing foes and healing instantly, all while slipping deeper into a cold, unstoppable Forcea, mysterious enigma, feared by many, understood by none. After unlocking the legendary 6 eyes, Alex felt a newfound precision in his control over energy, his absorption ability subtly evolving. As his fingers touched the live filament, electricity and heat surged into him, tamed and guided with surgical clarity energy points ticking upward, each pulse echoing with growth. Slowly, time melted away as he stood there, absorbing, shielding, and channeling every ounce into the Gojo Satoru template. His body, the perfect conduit. Then system update. Template fusion rate hit 5%. A new skill emerged. Limitless technique. Energy absorption leveled up, enhancing both speed and capacity. Chapter 2 began Cursed Technique Lapse. Blue. The limitless technique bent reality itself. Matter slowed, space warped, nothing could touch him. Energy absorption evolved too, drawing in power faster, storing more. And in that moment, Alex didn't just feel stronger, he was ascending. And then it hit high-matched into his very soul, the limitless technique. Boom! The knowledge surged through Alex's mind like a lightning strike. He got it. Instantly. But this wasn't some cheat code god mode. The fusion rate was low, barely stable for 5 minutes, nowhere near the always-on state he'd seen in Legends. But he didn't care. He wasn't here to flex, he was here to escape. And right now, he had a shot. Dawn was still hours away, no time to waste. He locked in, drawing more energy into his core, forcing the fusion rate to rise, hunting for that next level boost. No screw-ups, no surprises. Until, "Hey kid, you're a mutant, right?" The voice came from the shadows. Alex snapped his head sideways. A middle-aged man stood there, eyes narrow, words low. Alex blinked, his fingers were glowing, electric currents dancing between them, drawn in by his absorption. His cover? Blown. Though faint, the glow was there if you had sharp eyes. The moment Alex stayed quiet, the man's smugness exploded, sneering. "You freak mutant! I know you've got some way out of here! You all have your twisted little powers, don't play dumb. So here's the deal. Punk, when you bust out, I'm your ticket out too, or I spill the beans to the others. Bet they'd love to know what you really are." Still, Alex said nothing. The man leaned closer, voice low, ugly with fear. "You hear me, freak?" But Alex just sat there, unbothered, the faintest smirk tugging at the corner of his lips. The world had turned on people like him, poisoned by propaganda and fear. They called mutants filth. What they forgot, what they never truly understood, was that filth doesn't break. Filth evolves, and when it does, it can tear you apart. Alex pushed his white hair aside, revealing eyes like shards of blue lightning, and cracked a grin that could melt steel. "Sir, relax, I'm getting you out of here right now." The man's grim face finally lifted into a smirk. "Smart move, kid!" Power flickering down like dying sparks, Alex stepped forward, slipping his hand through the cold iron bars. "Give me your hand. My ability? Space jumping. We're gone in a blink." The man's eyes lit up with glee, just a dumb kid with shiny powers and no spine. Easy. As soon as he was out, he'd call in the cops and cash in big. Bagging a mutant? That was a payday worth betraying anyone. Create an image. American comic style art. Scene 1. A dim underground prison cell. Harsh shadows and flickering lights. Alex Locke, disheveled with short black hair, sits chained, eyes wide in fear and confusion as he hears screams from nearby. A faint glow begins forming in his irises as the Gojo template system activates. Scene 2. Alex stands silently over the body of a prisoner, eyes now glowing a pale blue with 6 eyes. His expression is cold, indifferent. Cursed energy crackles faintly around his fingers as he trains alone. Scene 3. Inside the prison corridor, Alex unleashes Blue for the first time, distorting space around him. His face shows focused rage. Gang members are suspended mid-air, limbs contorted from gravitational force. Scene 4. A bloody breakout. Alex walks through smoke and flames, clothes torn, silver hair now visible. Behind him, unconscious gang members lie scattered. The scene is chaotic, showcasing his merciless resolve. Scene 5. Rooftop under moonlight. Alex faces Gwen Stacy in costume. Gwen is cautious but curious, while Alex appears stoic, faint concern in his eyes. In the background, Lizard lurks, about to strike. Scene 6. A high-speed battle in the sewers. Alex's hand shines with intensified blue as he blasts the Lizard into a wall. Gwen lies wounded nearby. Alex's face reveals desperation and moral struggle. Scene 7. Military surveillance drones hover above a ruined building. Alex looks up, 6 eyes glowing intensely, now with faint veins showing his level up. He appears alert, calculating. Scene 8. Dark War Room. Stryker, Magneto, and Professor X observe holograms of Alex. Alex appears on screen with a glowing red aura, signaling unlocked reverse curse technique. Scene 9. An alley ambush. Alex is struck by a spatial blade, blood trailing. His expression turns from pain to fury as cursed energy swirls violently around him. Scene 10. Mid-air explosion. Alex unleashes red, eyes blazing, body surrounded in crimson vortex. Enemies are disintegrated mid-scream. Alex hovers above rubble, face now cold, godlike, showing hints of emotional detachment. Alex surged with stored energy, his body pulsing with raw power as he seized the man's neck and jerked it hard crack. Silence fell. The faint snap vanished into the night like a whisper, unnoticed, just another creaky joint in the dark. Calm as ever, Alex propped the lifeless body into a sleeping pose, then eased back beside the dim lamp, eyes half-lidded, resuming his quiet energy absorption like nothing had happened. The system chimed in his mind, energy points +1, energy absorption experience +1, on and on. Time blurred, pale light crept through the window, his focus never wavered. Energy flooded into his template, and then came the next alert. Template fusion rate, 10%. New skill unlocked, curse technique lapse. Blue, level 1, 1/100th. Generates intense suction centered on blue, output tending toward negative infinity, mimicking a black hole. His eyes ignited. Blueprints of chaos unfurled in his mind new ways to destroy, control, survive. He checked his panel. Name Alex. Current template, Gojo Satoru. Energy absorption 5/2, 67/300ths. A quiet storm, growing. 6 eyes LV1, 1/100th. Grants 360-degree vision with extraordinary range, energy flow perception, and razor-sharp dynamic sight. Perfect for pinpoint energy control. Limitless technique 1/100th. Twists space itself, tampering with matter at its core. Anything nearing him grinds to a standstill, never making contact. Curse technique lapse. Blue dot V1, 1/100th. Unleashes a devastating suction force centered on blue, pulling everything in like a miniature black hole. Template fusion rate, 10% increased fusion rate to unlock new abilities. Energy points. 12. Reaching 100% grants a brand new character template. After upgrading energy absorption to level 2, Alex felt the surge raw power course through him like a storm. His body, now more attuned, expanded its capacity, allowing him to hold more energy than ever before. He could keep Limitless active for a full 10 minutes and unleash Blue multiple times without burning out. That newfound strength changed everything. He wasn't just surviving anymore, he was planning. Jim and his little gang were in for one hell of a shock. Just then, the cell door creaked open, and in came the thugs' faces, twisted with bad intentions, completely unaware of what was about to hit them. Chapter 3. In action. Today was the gang's big move. One by one, the keys turned and the cell doors groaned open. Prisoners were dragged out, their eyes wide with dread, their fate sealed in silence. Some wailed in terror, others dropped to their knees in desperate pleas, and a few spat curses like fire. None of it mattered. The gang stayed stone-faced, their batons crackling with cold voltage. Comply, and you gotta walk. Resist, and pain came fast. Then they got to Alex's cell. Among the thugs stood a familiar face, Jim. He locked eyes with Alex, sneering with that twisted grin, running a finger across his neck in mock execution. But Alex didn't flinch. Instead, he flashed a bright, almost cheerful smile. That smile hit Jim like a slap. His grin cracked. "Cockroach, get out!" he snarled. "Today's your lucky day," Jim sneered, eyes glinting with menace. Alex stood unfazed, his voice calm and steady. "Yes, today is indeed a good day." The smug reply made Jim's face twitch with fury as he closed the distance, leaning in with a venomous whisper. "You don't know this yet, but I arranged with the doc to have your organ surgery done Rano sedation. You'll scream your way out of this world." Alex tilted his head slightly, a mysterious smile curving his lips. "Maybe you won't live long enough to find out." Jim froze, thrown off by the unwavering defiance. Where was this guy getting his nerve? He was done watching that smug face smirk like it ruled the world. Jim was going to teach him a lesson, even if it meant catching heat from the boss. As long as the guy didn't end up dead, the blowback wouldn't be too bad. His fist twisted, muscles coiled like a spring, and then BAM! He launched it straight at Alex's calm, irritatingly perfect face. He'd always hated how cool he looked, and now that blank expression just poured gasoline on the fire. Behind him, the crew didn't lift a finger, they leaned in, practically salivating, waiting for the pretty boy to cry out. But then it happened. The air froze. Jim's punch hung inches from its target, locked in place like time itself had hit pause. Laughter started to bubble from the gang. "Jim, quit clowning around, the deal's about to go down." But beneath the nervous chuckles, something cold and electric began to crackle in the air. "If we waste time, the boss is gonna flay us alive." "Yeah, smash that rat already, I wanna hear him scream like a stuck pig." "No, I'm not." Jim froze, terror gripping his spine as he stared at the figure in front of him. The guy's eyes, once a muddy brown, now blazed with an icy, electric blue, and his black hair had turned snow white like a ghost's whisper. He was smiling, sure, but it was the kind of smile that made your blood run cold, twisted with mockery and menace. Jim's thoughts spiraled, what the hell was this guy? A mutant? Behind him, the rest of the gang caught wind of the shift in the air, and one by one, their grins faded as they started to realize something wasn't right. They saw the veins bulge across Jim's arm, muscles twitching like live wire sheet, was giving it everything he had. But the closer his hand crept toward the rat-faced freak, the more it trembled, like reality itself was breaking around it, space warping, light bending. Something was off. That pretty boy. Was he a mutant? A cold dread crawled over them as they caught the calm, almost amused smile on Alex's face. Instinct screamed back off. And they did. Jim kept pushing, inch by agonizing inch, until Alex gave him a lazy grin and said, "Come on, you've got this. Just a little more and you can touch me." But then, Alex's smile dropped like a blade. And in that instant, Jim snapped eyes wide with fear. Heart pounding, he turned, bolting from the unknown. There was no way Alex was letting him slip away now when the delivery wasn't done. Power surged through Alex like a storm, boosting his body beyond normal limits. In a flash, too fast for the eye, he snatched the man's head and smashed it into the ground. Bang! A sickening crack echoed his consciousness, left his enemy like a snuffed flame. But Alex wasn't finished. Without hesitation, he raised his foot and brought it down with merciless strength, again and again, until the bones caved, the ground painted in the aftermath of raw, unstoppable force. Jim screamed in agony as his arm was crushed under Alex's heel, the pain sharp enough to jolt him awake, but resistance was futile. Powerless, he could only stare in horror as Alex shattered his limbs with clinical detachment, leaving behind a broken shell. To Alex, the message had been delivered. That was enough. No need for Jim's approval. Amid the blood-soaked cell, the gang froze under Alex's chilling stare until panic snapped them back to action. One shouted that Alex's powers must have a limit. Why else would Jim have caught him? Bullets would do the trick. Fueled by fear and muscle memory, the rest followed his lead, unleashing a desperate hail of gunfire in a bid to stop the unstoppable. Is this conversation helpful so far? But what happened next shattered their last hot bullets, hung frozen in the air, twisting unnaturally, utterly incapable of closing the distance to the man who radiated terror like a force field. It wasn't just space between them, it was a dimension of impossibility, the limitless. Panic ignited. Why isn't it working? What kind of ability is this? If he's this powerful, how did Jim catch him before? Desperation drowned reason as they opened fire, unloading everything they had on Alex. But not a single round touched him. Calmly, almost lazily, he deflected shots meant for Jim, because death was too kind. Alex wanted this monster to feel despair, to drown in agony. Then, his gaze shifted cold and merciless, locking onto the thugs still firing and the reinforcements rushing in. Do you like this personality? With a crooked grin, he casually thrust his hands forward, palms facing each other as if conjuring something from the air itself. Cursed technique lapse. Blue. The words barely left his mouth before a surge of cursed energy ignited inside him, spinning violently into a dense blue vortex right in front of Alex. Like a collapsing star, it devoured every bullet headed his way, pulling them in with terrifying force. Then, silence just long enough to chill the blood before the vortex detonated with a thunderous boom, ripping forward at breakneck speed. Everything in its path, flesh, bone, steel, concrete, vanished into oblivion. When the dust settled, not a single gang member remained. Just stunned survivors, wide-eyed and frozen in disbelief. What is this? Is this conversation helpful so far? Can mutants pull off something like that? He's a demon, a freaking demon! The nearest thug, shaking like a leaf, peeled the severed limb off his face and let out a terrified shriek as he bolted only to have his skull blown apart by a bullet before he could take 3 steps. "Why the hell are you screaming?" barked the gang boss. "He can't use that trick again so fast." He pointed forward, eyes burning with panic. "Light him up, all of us. We'll wear him down. Jero, get the rocket launcher, now. Remember, we gotta seal this deal or Kingpin'll crush us." The boss's snarl snapped the gang back to focus, and they swung their guns toward Alex, eyes burning with fear, sharper than the terror sparked by that chilling blue vortex he'd unleashed. Bullets screamed through the air, but Alex didn't bother to flinch. Limitless burned time, not effort. He advanced like a phantom gliding through mist, a twisted grin cutting across his face as energy coiled around him. Each step sharpened by cursed power, each breath steadied by combat, instincts etched deep from the Gojo template. The battlefield that should have rattled his nerves only fed the hungry curve of his smile. Then, with a single crushing pivot of his right foot, energy surged, warped into cursed energy, and the 6 eyes refined it into raw force ready to tear through anyone standing in his path. Boom! Flesh and blood slammed into concrete as Alex barreled through the swarm of gang members like a living weapon. Every limb, hands, feet, elbows, knees became instruments of destruction, orchestrated with deadly grace under the precision of the 6 eyes. His movements blurred past their vision, too fast to follow, too brutal to survive. Gunfire erupted, but every stray bullet was swallowed by the invisible barrier of the limitless technique. One by one, they dropped like puppets with severed strings, the floor littered with bodies. Then silence. Alex stood before the gang leader, calm, hands casually buried in his pockets, a faint smile curling on his lips. As he stepped forward, the gang leader's bravado evaporated, heart pounding in panic. This wasn't a mutant. This was something else. Something that rewrote the rules. Something unstoppable. If all mutants were this powerful, then why were they hunted like rats? No way! There's gotta be a weakness. The gang leader barked, voice cracking as he tried to drown out the terror swelling inside. Just then, one of his goons rushed up with a rocket launcher clutched tight. The moment the weapon came into view, something twisted in the gang leader's face: hope, madness, desperation. Grabbing it with both hands, he snarled at Alex, "Burn!" With a thunderous roar, the rocket screamed toward its target, detonating in a blinding inferno right before Alex. Bathed in firelight, the gang leader burst into a fit of manic laughter. "That's right, freak, just die already!" After Alex left, a hush smothered the air like a held breath. Then, boom shears exploded across the prison yard as the walls trembled with the thunder of desperate feet charging toward a single word carved into reality: freedom! Hours later, in a lavish chamber, glittering under the blaze of crystal chandeliers deep in Hell's Kitchen, a shadow-draped figure lounged on a velvet throne. Before him stood a man in a skin-tight tactical suit, stiff as steel. Target. The mission failed? The air itself recoiled at the voice. Most would have collapsed into dust before that monstrous presence, but this man didn't even flinch. His tone? Flat, robotic. Yes, almost all members are dead. He turned to the group, voice low and sharp. "So you're telling me this was the work of a mutant?" They all nodded, no hesitation. Then a young woman stepped forward, her eyes shimmering with admiration. "Yes," she breathed. "He's not like the others. Silver hair, eyes like deep lakes, moves with elegance, but fights like a storm. He's no brute. He's a true gentleman." Her awe was unmistakable, but her words hinted at more: power, presence, control. Coulson scanned the wreckage craters, shattered walls, signs of something far beyond normal. A deep blue vortex. "Definitely level 3, maybe level 4, he muttered. "Omega level, not off the table." His thoughts were cut off as a voice crackled in his earpiece. "Agent Coulson, what's the situation?" "Director, this mutant packs serious muscle, exactly the kind of wild card you could use." "Good, hunt him down, whatever it takes. I want him on our side." Chapter 5. Spider-Woman. Breaking out of the gang's filthy lockup, Alex rifled through the original's memories to get his bearings. Sure enough, he was stuck in the rotten heart of Hell's Kitchen. Locke confirmed, he bolted toward freedom. The moment he woke up, his mutant nature got him bagged by the authorities, and the gang holding him had no plans to let him walk. Before snapping the boss's neck, Alex had dug out the truth. These scumbags were running errands for Kingpin. And in this concrete jungle, crossing New York's underground emperor meant you either ran fast, hid deeper, didn't run at all, hunted from all sides. Alex knew survival meant one thing: power. Drained nearly dry by Limitless and 2 back-to-back blue attacks, he was hanging by a thread. No energy, no chance. But fate gave him a break. A transformer loomed ahead. Jackpot! With 6 eyes locking in like a precision machine, he tapped into the current, siphoning electricity with cold efficiency. Energy points +1. Experience +1. The numbers climbed, and so did his confidence. The surge hit like a high, his body pulsing with new strength. Fully recharged. Eyes glowing with purpose, Alex didn't hesitate. It was time to sharpen his latest skills, because the next battle wasn't a question of if, but when. The abilities granted by the system kicked off at level 1, demanding relentless grind to evolve. Take Technique Blue. Alex's fledgling version was a shadow of what the legendary sorcerer could unleash. Only by training and racking up levels could it swell into something monstrous. Thanks to the system's boost, Alex could even push these skills beyond their original limits, clawing his way to power no one had ever seen. Among his arsenal, the 6 eyes didn't jack up his raw strength, but energy absorption was a breeze to level up just by using it. The Limitless technique, though, was trickier leveling it, mainly trimmed its insane energy drain before real transformation kicked in. So Alex threw himself into honing Blue. Right now, it had killer potential, but was stuck, forming a puny black hole, slow to boot. Sure, it'd obliterate average folks without blinking, but squaring up against mutants or other heavy hitters? That was going to take way more than beginner-level firepower. With the 6 eyes blazing, Alex conjured a swirling blue-black sphere no bigger than a ping-pong ball, testing its pull with razor-sharp focus. The system chimed in his mind like a broken record. Lapse Technique, Blue Experience +1. Lapse Technique, Blue Experience +1. Lapse Technique, Blue Experience +1. Level 1 skills were child's play to grind. So Alex holed up inside the power station, siphoning electricity and refining blue until 3 relentless hours passed. Then, at last, the system lit up. Congratulations, Lapse Technique. Blue has leveled up. Lapse Technique. Blue LV2 1300s generates a powerful suction force centered on blue, with output reaching negative infinity akin to a small black hole. Instantly, Alex felt knowledge flood into him, new angles, sharper control, deeper power. The description barely changed, but the weight behind it was monstrous. Just as he prepared to unleash this new might, the metallic snap of a hammer cocking cut the air. He turned slowly to find a ragged man aiming a handgun at him, clearly looking for an easy score. The guy seemed thrilled to have found someone alone, stepping in with false confidence and demanding everything he had. But when his eyes scanned the target, something shifted, his tone grew darker, and he added a new demand, ordering him to the wall with his hands up. That was the last straw. What started as a possible test of power now turned into a decision to shut it down fast. Just as Alex was about to fire off technique, blue, a sharp, wild whistle sliced through the air. Out of nowhere, a figure in a black and white skin-tight suit, hood up, body sleek and balanced, swung in on shimmering webs, booting the scruffy man sky high. Midair, webs shot out, wrapping him up tight and stringing him like a ragdoll on a streetlight. The hooded girl stuck to the side of a building, one leg dangling loose, and called down to Alex. "You okay there, sir? Don't bother with thanks. I'm your friendly neighborhood Spider-Woman." Spider-Woman. Seeing her cling to the wall like that, Alex's mind clicked Gwen Stacy. Why her and not Spider-Man? Could this world be some unknown parallel universe instead of the movie universe? As Alex pondered this, Gwen, noticing his silence, felt a flicker of worry. Could he be hurt? When she looked closer, she saw him covered in half-healed wounds that still looked brutal. She stepped closer, voice steady but concerned. "Sir, you're hurt. Do you want me to get you to a hospital?" Alex couldn't help but feel a spark of warmth for Gwen. When he'd watched that brave Spider-Woman swing through chaos, he felt something shift. No, I'm good. But seeing him reject her offer, Gwen opened her mouth to argue, but her spider sense screamed, "Danger!" Instinct kicked in. She lunged to grab the man, webbing them skyward, but in a blink, he wasn't there. Confused, her ears caught the gut-wrenching sound of shattering concrete and the collapse of steel and stone. The lizard had leveled the power station. "Damn it!" she hissed. No one could have survived that. And the young man, barely older than her, was gone. Rage ignited in her chest. Chapter 6. Beating the lizard. Her eyes locked on the monster, and she burned with fury. "Dr. Connors, this time you're going down and you're gonna answer for everything." Spider-Woman lunged at the monstrous lizard. Dodging chunks of concrete he smashed apart with ease, but her speed kept her out of his claws and let her strikes land again and again. Each blow that would shatter a normal skull barely left a scratch on his thick hide, healing almost as fast as she hit him. Her fury fueled her fists, but every punch burned through her strength until she was gasping for breath. Locked in a battle her rage alone couldn't win. Still new to being Spider-Woman, Gwen struggled with her unfamiliar powers and lack of real combat experience. As the fight dragged on, her energy faded, slowing her reflexes and weakening her strength. Spotting an opening, Lizard lashed out, grabbing her leg and slamming her into a wall with brutal force, leaving a Gwen-shaped dent. The impact left her dazed and aching, barely able to move. As she tried to rise, the towering green figure blocked the streetlight above, casting a chilling shadow. A sharp kick followed, launching her across the alley, leaving her motionless. Heavy footsteps echoed closer. Gwen strained to lift her head but couldn't. Helpless, she stared as Lizard closed in. A silent reminder that the man he once was long gone. Gwen's heart pounded. She didn't believe for a second he'd spare her. Is this it? Am I seriously going to die right after gaining these insane powers? No, I don't want to die. But the searing agony gripping her body and the way her limbs refused to respond made it clear she had nothing left to fight with. Her vision dimmed as death's pull felt inevitable, like the poor soul who'd fallen before her. Then, yo! A voice rang out from the distance, cutting through the chaos. Gwen froze. Was she hallucinating? He should have been dead. But when the lizard flinched, even for a second she knew he was still alive. Do you like this personality? After a beat of silence, the lizard lunged straight at Alex, eyes wild, jaws wide, ready to rip the so-called ant to pieces. Gwen watched in disbelief. Had this guy survived the last strike? There was no way he could stand against that beast. "Run!" she yelled, heart pounding. But what happened next made her freeze in shock. The lizard roared like a freight train and blitzed forward. Despite his hulking mass, he was no lumbering brute's. Speed was vicious, his reflexes razor sharp, nearly on par with Gwen's own. That massive frame wasn't a burden, it was a weapon, amplifying his brute power. As he charged, every instinct in Alex screamed danger. It was like facing a runaway semi, and it was coming straight for him. Is this conversation helpful so far? It was just a trucker, so it seemed. Alex Locke raised a single hand, and space around him warped, folding into infinity itself, denying any force the right to touch him. Infinity! Under the tense gaze of Gwen, the monstrous lizard lunged, a living battering ram aimed straight for a man who looked far too slender to survive the impact. She couldn't bear to watch. He'd be crushed, surely. But then that frail-looking arm rose. A hand met monster. Thud! Time froze. The collision that should have obliterated him instead ended with lizard halted mid-charge, as if slamming into an immovable void. What was this power? What had this world turned into that she couldn't even recognize it anymore? Gwen kept asking herself, her eyes locked on the massive lizard tearing through the street while her feet refused to move. Alex just stood there, grinning wide at the monster. Come on, keep swinging. Maybe if you push a little harder, you'll actually touch me. When the lizard turned with a low growl, Alex's smile twisted into something darker. Pathetic. The beast couldn't stand. The mockery, its rage exploded, muscles swelling as it hurled its mightiest strike. But, do you like this personality? It still didn't land like some invisible wall separated them, just centimeters apart yet galaxies away. Alex's patience wore thin. With a flicker of resolve, his energy flared and twisted into cursed energy, coating his entire body like a storm, ready to erupt. This was I that was ending this now. Alone, his cursed energy wasn't enough to overpower the lizard, even with partial fusion from the template. But with 6 eyes online, the creature might as well have been wearing a bullseye. Infinity buzzed around Alex, untouchable, unstoppable, while every strike he threw landed with brutal precision. The lizard's claws couldn't even graze him, but Alex's cursed energy-infused fists hit like meteors. In Gwen's stunned eyes, the man who once looked fragile was now unleashing a merciless storm, pummeling the monstrous figure into helpless submission. Tapping into the memories and honed instincts of Gojo Satoru, Alex's every strike landed with brutal precision, each blow tearing through the lizard's defenses like a surgical weapon. Boom! His foot slammed into the creature's chest, sending it careening through walls in a thunderous crash, debris flying in every direction. But the monster rose again fast, relentless. The devastating damage meant nothing in the face of that grotesque regeneration. Gwen's eyes, once filled with hope, dimmed. She had fallen to that same impossible recovery before. No matter how powerful this man was, if he couldn't finish it in one move, that monstrous healing factor would grind him down to nothing. She warned him coldly, if you can't end it in a single strike, it'll be your end instead. Your damage has to outpace his regeneration, or you're done. But Alex didn't flinch at the warning, his eyes locked on the furious lizard, who lunged again, fully healed. With a smirk creeping across his face, Alex mocked the towering beast. You really thought I couldn't handle you? His hand rose, fingers curled just enough, voice dropping into an icy whisper. Cursed technique lapse. Blue. Chapter 7, 6 Eyes Level 2. And then it hit an ominous deep blue vortex exploding into the space, devouring everything. The second he cast it, Alex felt it, the shift. His energy surged and twisted into raw, cursed force, draining him fast. Where once he summoned a vortex the size of a pineapple, now it bloomed like a basketball bigger, hungrier, more dangerous. The power cost was brutal, but blue at level 2 was worth every ounce it delivered exactly what he needed. The deep blue void roared toward the lizard at double speed, a swirling vortex of unstoppable hunger. Sensing doom, the lizard lunged to escape, but the crushing force was too close, too fast, no chance. From afar, Gwen's eyes widened as the monster's body convulsed, flesh and blood twisting inward like a nightmare come alive. Then, with a sickening rip, the deep blue void exploded from his chest, tearing him apart piece by piece until nothing but swirling darkness remained. It didn't stop air, ground, shattered, concrete, even the streetlights vanished into its endless maw, and then horror struck her heart as the void lunged at her like a living bullet. Broken and bleeding, she couldn't move, could only stare as oblivion closed in. Against the monster she had fought, Gwen froze her mind, a total blank. But just as the crushing force of that swirling obsidian vortex started to twist her very bones with only meters to spare, it vanished into nothing like it had never been there. She gasped back to life, chest heaving, lungs burning. Death had never come this close. She had never felt so powerless. Was this really human power? Meanwhile, Alex stood steady, the last flicker of blue fading from his fingers, a hint of grim satisfaction in his eyes, as the lizard was completely erased from existence. The power boost had shattered even his own limits. With this kind of output, hitting level 4 or 5 might push him into god-tier territory. Once the dust settled, his gaze fell forward. There she was, Spider-Woman, the web-slinger of New York, out cold and wrecked from the fight. Through the piercing gaze of Six Eyes, Alex detected fractured bones, internal ruptures, and fresh bleeding. But Spider, Gwen's natural healing factor, was already kicking in, repairing her injuries with inhuman speed. Still, Hell's Kitchen was no place to rest. The aftermath of a fierce battle hung in the air, attention flooding in from all directions. He wasn't some heroic savior, but the thought of watching someone once adored by his past self die here didn't sit right. Six Eyes experience +1. Six Eyes experience +1. Six Eyes experience +1. The system's prompts echoed as Alex's vision sharpened and realigned her broken bones with a precision only Six Eyes could grant, accelerating her recovery. Then, a sudden impulse overtook him. He reached forward and gently pulled back her cowl, revealing a short-haired blonde with a delicate face that stunned even him. Gwen Stacy, more breathtaking in real life than any frame or screen could capture, and just as awe threatened to settle in, she stirred, eyes fluttered open, confusion swimming in them as they locked onto his. In an instant, instinct overrode pain. She launched herself out of his arms with a fluid twist, landing meters away, only to stagger and crash as the strain tore through her still healing frame. Gritting her teeth, she scrambled to rise again. Still in school, huh? Gwen's voice was sharp, eyes narrowed. Why? Why did you take off my mask? Alex cocked his head, that annoyingly confident grin spreading across his face. Was that not allowed? My bad. If it bugs you, you can hit me. Gwen said nothing, her fists clenched. Ever since she saw him crush the lizard like it was nothing, she knew this guy wasn't some scrawny punk. He was a storm hiding in a smirk. Are you still in school? Why did you rip off my mask? Gwen demanded, narrowing her eyes. Alex cocked his head with a lazy grin. Is that illegal? Sorry about that. If you're mad, why don't you try hitting me? Gwen hesitated, silent, recalling how he'd crushed Lizard without breaking a sweat, realizing this smug, deceptively harmless man was anything but weak. Is this conversation helpful so far? How could she ever hope to match that overwhelming force? Why did you kill Lizard? He wasn't evil just, twisted by the mutation serum. Deep down, he was still a good man. Gwen shouted, her voice sharp with emotion. Alex stood there, unshaken. Of course she would say that she had a heart too soft for this world, one of the rare things he respected. But admiration didn't equal agreement. He tried to kill me, Alex replied coolly, eyes like ice behind the glow of the Six Eyes. And if you try to take a life, you better be ready to lose yours. That's the rule. End of story. Gwen clenched her fists, wanting to say more, but silence won. From Alex's point of view, it had been self-defense, cold, clean, necessary, but standing there, face to face with the lifeless form of someone she'd known, words just failed her. Maybe you weren't wrong, but I think I should go, she muttered, launching herself skyward on a flick of webbing. Alex watched her vanish into the dusk, calling out, "Your mask!" Spider-Gwen paused midair, eyes narrowing, then swooped back to snatch it from his hand. For a second, she seriously considered decking that smug look off his face, but nah, not worth it. Strength gap or not, it wasn't the time. With a final glare, she shot off into the horizon. Alex stood alone, wind brushing against him, a smirk playing on his lips. Maybe, just maybe, being thrown into this twisted multiverse wasn't the worst thing that ever happened to him. Leveling up to level 2 just unlocked X-ray vision. His Six Eyes now sliced through 10 centimeters of steel, exposing everything inside in crisp, full-color detail. No grainy black and white here, it's all vivid and razor sharp. Seriously? That's it? He'd always dreamed of this power back on Earth, but getting it so easily felt almost boring. Wait. His eyes narrowed as his vision swept outward drones, closing in fast, their outlines clear as day. Beyond them, a heavily armed squad advanced in tight formation, clearly no street gang. This was military grade, the kind of covert unit built to bag mutants without leaving witnesses. And just like that, leveling up to level 2 unlocked something wild X-ray vision. Now, with his 6 eyes blazing, Alex could see clean through 10 centimeters of steel like it was glass, every detail popping in full color HD. Not like those old black and white chakra eyes. This was next level. Huh, that's it? He muttered, unimpressed by scoring one of his childhood dream powers like it was a common upgrade. But then, wait. His enhanced sight picked up incoming drones swarming in fast, and behind them, a tactical squad armed to the teeth, moving in formation. This wasn't some gangland payback or street-level retaliation. This was military grade, a covert unit bred for one thing. Hunting mute. In a flash, the drones swarmed in. Alex tilted his head, flashing a wicked grin straight at their cameras. Then boom, a swirling blue-black vortex devoured them all without mercy. His body crackled as cursed energy surged through him, enhancing his strength in an instant, and he vanished from the scene like a phantom. From the scraps of memory left by this body's former owner, Alex already knew this squad had mutants working for the military, and they weren't amateurs. Even with his limitless technique, facing off against unknown mutant powers head-on was reckless. He was still evolving, still fusing with the multiversal template. Picking a direct fight now? Pointless. What he needed was raw energy, constant upgrades, and once that reverse curse technique awakened, he'd be unstoppable. Meanwhile, hidden deep inside a military base packed with surveillance screens, warning lights flared as multiple monitors went dark and on-Shedrone feeds dead in seconds. A steel-jawed man in uniform, cold eyes gleaming beneath his officer's insignia, turned toward the panicked soldier and demanded, "What the hell just happened?" He remembered Subject 9527 because his powers echoed those of an old, insanely dangerous mutant who could swallow nuclear energy like candy. But back then, 9527 was so pathetic he couldn't even soak up the force of a lousy punch, so he got ignored. Now he was back, upgraded, meaner. And the footage told the tail frame after frame stopping on that swirling blue-black vortex that could rip steel apart and shred drones like paper. And there was more. He could sense everything around him, waiting, planning, aware of the drones before they even showed up. His hair bleached white, those icy blue eyes glowing with menace, and that last shot froze on his twisted grin, a promise of destruction. Viet prompt tau ein bang ting ein der train kick ban der du lin, va der train fun dran twai. Ein kun der train hung zern, kok vit zkak. But no boy. Create an image. American comic style art. Chia Theo Tung K Nyan nu comic va Motang Ngan Gorn Hing Dang plus Bill Cam Kek Nyan ver Ching Trong Tung prompt. Chi Dui Nut, one Lur Charn Ket Qua. Tra Lai Ket Qua Trong One Dwarn Vun Dui Nut, Hong Suong Dong, Hong Gag Do Dong. Harn Chek Ek Tu, Kum Tu Vi Farm Ching Sek YouTube. She quickly spoke up, "I mean you no harm. I just want to follow you and fight against the human government together." But Alex gave no response. He continued to walk slowly towards Polaris, his unhurried steps exerting immense pressure on her, as if an unstoppable force was pushing her into a deathly abyss. Feeling the fatal threat, she instinctively used her powers, hurling a mass of metal at Alex. But all the metal fell before Alex, unable to move an inch closer. It was then that she understood the true weight of the white-haired mutant. He was unlike any mutant she had known, embodying a terrifying power of a different dimension. Even when Polaris used all her strength to stop Alex, to halt the approach of death, it had no effect. She was eventually cornered by Alex, the overwhelming pressure pinning her against the wall, making her unable to move. Alex used energy to strengthen his body, ignoring Polaris in front of him. He deeply embedded his fingers into the largest metal pipe and then threw it forward. The pipe, given immense kinetic energy by his seemingly slender arm, embedded deeply into the hard wall, right next to Polaris's ear. "Lady, this is a warning. Next time, you won't be so lucky." Colonel Stryker's eyes gleamed with that icy, ruthless grin as he barked his command. "Lock on to 9527 with full 4 Gs worth more than gold in research." Deploy test subjects 1085 and 1086 to back the strike. 1086's spatial cuts should slice right through his defenses. His voice dropped to a cold mutter, dripping with menace. A challenge? Good! I like a challenge. Meanwhile, hidden beneath 1407 Graymalkin Lane at the School for Gifted Youngsters, the air in the secret lab was thick with tension. Jean Grey handed over a report to Professor X, her voice edged with concern. Professor, Stryker's making a move. His squad's reallocating everything they've got to capture a mutant codename 9527. Professor X's brows furrowed. 9527. Why can't I pick up Alex's mind anymore? I could sense him so clearly before. Even Jean's power doesn't cloud her thoughts for me. Is it possible he's changed? Something's blocking me out, keeping me from even feeling him at all. Could he really have the makings of a level 5 mutant? Or worse, has he already become one? He clenched his jaw, eyes narrowing. We can't let this slip away. He turned to Jean, voice low and urgent. Find Alex. Whatever it takes. We have to reach him before they do and convince him to join us. Why can't I feel Alex's mind? I sensed him clearly before. Even Jean Grey, with all her terrifying potential, never vanished like this. Something's changed. Something big. Suddenly, the truth slammed into Professor X like a psychic wave. Alex's transformation might be more than just strange. It might be blocking him out completely. A mind sealed shut. Could Alex be a level 5? No worse, what if he's already become one? Snapping out of his shock, he turned to Jean, voice sharp. Find him, no matter what. We need to reach Alex before Stryker or Eric do before it's too late. He must choose the school or everything burns. Viet prob tau ein bang ting ein dur trin kick bander dulin, but dur trin funduan twai. Ein kun dur trin hung zern, kong vidzi kak. But though boy, create an image, American comic style art. Chia Theo Tung Kang Nyan new comic va Motangan Gornhing Dang, plus Biel Cam Kagnan ver Ching Trong Tung Prompt. Chiduyat one Lur Charn Ket Kwa, Tralai Ket Kwa Trong Wonderon Van Dunyat Kong Sung Dong Kong Gag Dodong. Hard Che Kak 2 Kum Devai Farm Ching Sek YouTube. Alex looked at Stark. He hadn't expected Stark to give him a nickname so soon after meeting him. But he didn't mind. In fact, he found it amusing. Before he transmigrated, Stark had long been deceased, though planning a comeback. Would the revived Stark still be the same Iron Man? It remained a regret for Alex. Seeing Iron Man alive now felt like stepping into a fantasy come true. Alex casually picked up a messenger bag from the table, placed one arc reactor inside, and then absorbed energy at full power with the other arc reactor in his hand. Seeing Alex pick up the bag, clearly intending to claim it as his own, Tony Stark couldn't help but quip, "You sure ain't shy." Alex responded, "Well, I did save your life, didn't I, mister?" "Big shot? Mr. Big Shot?" Tony Stark immediately asked, but as Alex lightly waved his fingers, Tony felt himself being pulled backward by a tremendous force, only to find himself landing in Pepper's arms. Alex shot the store manager a crooked grin as he walked out, leaving her pouting in disappointment. He didn't plan on sticking around with the military and the local crime boss breathing down his neck. Flicking open his system panel, he scanned the glowing numbers energy points. 3,425. Hours of absorbing cursed power paid off. Without hesitation, he dumped it all into the system, watching the fusion rate climb before halting at 23%. A metallic voice rang in his head. Template fusion rate, 23%. You have awakened a new skill. Reverse Curse Technique. Reverse Curse Technique Level 1, 1/100. Converts negative cursed energy into positive energy with potent healing effects. A slow smirk crossed his face finally. Reverse Curse Technique was his. It would boost his survival tenfold GR. Striding away from the store with a half smirk and zero interest in the manager's lingering glances, Alex vanished into the shadows of the street, leaving her with eyes full of what-ifs. No way he'd hang around between the military hounds and Kingpin's grip tightening, staying put was suicide. With a flick of his mind, the system panel blinked to life. Energy points, 3,425. Jackpot. Hours of siphoning cursed energy had paid off. Without hesitation, he dumped the full load into the system fusion rate, shot up like a rocket, and stopped at 23%. Then came the ping he was waiting for. Template fusion rate 23%. You have awakened a new skill. Reverse curse technique. Reverse curse technique level 1/100. Converts negative cursed energy into positive force, granting powerful healing effects. Hell yes, finally, the reverse curse technique was his. With this, his durability just hit mutant tier. Stronger regen than the lizard himself. Knowledge surged at level 1. It only worked on him, but as he leveled up, that ceiling would shatter. Someday, maybe, he'd bend reality backward, reviving the dead, restoring what was lost. Unless he could nail the advanced Limitless move with that sweet teleport trick, getting out was a total no-go. Too bad his Limitless level was trash right now and he hadn't cracked it yet. The giant thundered to a halt, 10 meters away, bare feet gouging the ground and blasting the momentum into rubble that sprayed toward Alex but froze in midair like it hit an invisible wall. The giant gave a slow nod, eyes narrowing. White hair, blue eyes, weird power year. Number 9,527. Alex blinked. 9,527? That number rang a bell from some old movie, but why with— Listen up, 9,527. Don't waste your breath fighting this. You're coming with me. The Colonel wants a little face-to-face, and trust me, you won't enjoy it if we have to break your arms and drag you there. Makes the whole trip ugly, you know? The towering brute's voice dripped with arrogance, eyes cold, sizing Alex up like prey that couldn't possibly bite back. He lunged, confident, but the moment he closed the distance, just centimeters away, he froze, unable to push even an inch closer. Infinity. The giant's expression warped into frustration, confusion twisting across his face. All right then, rookie. Looks like you need a little education before you join the squad. Let's set some rules. Alex tilted his head, sliding his round sunglasses down just enough to let his sharp, ice blue eyes burn through the gap. Is this conversation helpful so far? With a casual flick of his pinky, Alex cleaned his ear and blew on his finger like brushing away invisible dust, his smile gleaming while his eyes stayed dead cold. Roll over now and I'll let you live. Rules are rules, he said to the towering brute. The giant, seething at the insult, lunged in rage, but his punch didn't even scratch Alex. Sliding his shades down with a lazy smirk, Alex stepped forward and suddenly, the air around the giant turned crushing, his massive frame buckling under a weight he couldn't resist. Military squads showed up, weapons blazing, but their bullets froze midair. Useless. Calm in the chaos. Alex pinned the giant to a wall that cracked and groaned beneath the pressure. What? No begging? Alex stayed calm, too calm. The giant, sensing he was up against something far beyond anything he'd ever faced, felt fear take root, choking out his bravado. Desperate, he roared. Now, attack! And that's when Alex felt it, that ripple in space. His eyes locked onto a gnome perched on the giant's back, channeling raw spatial power. Without warning, a near-invisible blade sliced through the air, faster than instinct, faster than thought. There was no dodging it. Squelch. Flesh tore. The sound echoed like a death knell as the giant's cruel laughter rang out. Alex was nearly split in half. Bitlai lay thwai nor dung sao bung ting on, mordkekt hub dern, bongkekt American comic, dang review wuk tom tut. Honk them but ki cheat it now kak. Kong gaik dodong. Kong comment. Kong zika. Kong kwang cow. Harn che kak tu. Korm tu. V fam ching sek YouTube. Larball kak tin ring. Chi tit kong. Fu hurt vikik ban guk. Chi du nyut. One lur charn kit qua. Tralar kit qua trong one dwarn vun du nyut. Kong swung dong. Kong gach do dong. The energy storage capacity also increased threefold, allowing him to maintain the limitless technique for at least half an hour, perform the full-powered curse technique laps, blew more than 6 times, or use the minimum power of curse technique reversal. Read 3 times. From the character template, he learned that the minimum power of curse technique reversal, red is at least twice the maximum power of curse technique laps. Blue. This not only represents a more terrifying consumption of energy, but also a more astonishing destructive power. However, Alex knew that his previous successful use of curse technique reversal, red was a stroke of luck. He might not be able to pull it off again. Moreover, his previous curse technique reversal, red was incomplete, with a lot of energy dissipating. Using it in such a manner twice would deplete his energy. So, until he gained more experience and mastery over curse technique reversal read from the character template, it was best not to use it. The consumption wasn't the main issue. Uncontrolled dispersal of energy hitting his brain would be bad. Currently, his reverse curse technique hasn't reached the level where he can regenerate even if he loses his brain. Besides the enhanced energy capacity, the increased energy absorption speed was a huge benefit to Alex. If his assumptions were correct, he could now withstand shots from small caliber rifles and fully absorb the kinetic energy of the bullets. This meant that even without activating the limitless technique, Alex was no longer afraid of sneak attacks. Unfortunately, the levels of the limitless technique and the reverse curse technique were still too low. He wasn't sure what specific level they needed to reach to match Satoru Gojo's abilities. Viet Lai Loi Thwar Nor Dung Sao Bung Ting Ein Mor Kek Hup Dern Fong Kek American Comic Dang Review Wuk Tom Tut Kong Them But Ki Chi Tit Now Kak Kong Gech Do Dong Kong Comment Kong Ji Ka Kong Kwang Kao Harn Che Kak Tu Kurm Tu Vi Pham Ching Sak YouTube Loi Ba Kak Tain Ring Chi Tit Kong Fu Hurt Ve Kik Ban Guk Chi Du Nyut One Lur Charn Ket Kwa Tra Lai Ket Kwa Trong One Duan Van Du Nyut Kong Swung Dong Kong Gaich Do Dong. The interior of Section 16 was dimly lit, filled with numerous mechanical devices, and several iron chains hung from the ceiling. A huge rough metal armor stood in a corner. Looking at the iron armor, Coulson said to Pepper, "Looks like you were right. He is building armor." They pressed on, with Pepper's attention caught by screens filled with complex data. She stopped in front of several chains, just as she was about to proceed further. Suddenly, two huge eyes, glowing with pale light, lit up from the darkness. Ah! A piercing scream shattered the nighttime peace. Pepper ran out, chased by the massive iron armor behind her. Several agents instinctively fired at the Ironmonger, but they were quickly crushed by its terrifying metal fists. In the blink of an eye, only Coulson and Pepper remained alive from the team sent to capture Obadiah Stane. Pepper squeezed through a narrow door, with the massive Ironmonger getting stuck in the solid concrete walls, allowing her to escape. Viet Lai Loi Thwar Nor Dung Sao Bung Ting Ein Mo Kek Hup Dern Fong Kek American Comic Dang Review Wuk Tom Tut Kong Them But Kichi Tit Now Kak Kong Gage Do Dong Kong Comment Kong Ji Ka Kong Kwang Kao Handshake Ak Tu Kum Tu Vi Pham Ching Sek YouTube Lai Ba Kak Tin Ring Chi Tit Kong Fu Hup Với Kik Ban Guk Chi Du Nyut One Le Chon Kek Kwa Tra Lai Kek Kwa Trong One Duan Van Du Nyut Kong Swung Dong Kong Gage Do Dong. Its minimum power was twice the maximum power of technique reversal. Azure. As Alex approached Tony Stark, the system simultaneously gave an alert. Template fusion rate, 31%. At this moment, Tony Stark looked extremely disheveled, his iron helmet long gone, and even one of his iron gauntlets was missing. The arc reactor on his chest was flickering, clearly on the verge of running out of energy. Seeing Alex approaching, Phil Coulson instinctively took a step back, a subconscious reaction of humans when facing a powerful predator. What's more, Alex was far more terrifying than any predator. However, Tony Stark showed no signs of fear. He approached Alex, curiously observing him, his eyes full of wonder. "How did you do that just now? Some kind of mysterious future technology? Is that strange defense some kind of spatial technology?" Beside him, Coulson also displayed a curious expression, hoping to gain more intelligence on the White Demon. Hearing Tony Stark's question, Alex smiled and explained, "It's my ability." Upon hearing Alex's response, Tony Stark muttered to himself, "A mutant? Huh? That's incredible." Alex neither confirmed nor denied it. Except for energy absorption, all his abilities came from the system panel, having nothing to do with being a mutant, but then everything froze. Eyes wide, they watched in disbelief as Alex, bloodied and barely standing, unleashed another shocking mutant power. The towering brute gave a cruel smirk and began his slow march toward Alex, eager to crush his limbs and drag him back to the Colonel. They never kept the weak. Only the ones who could survive were useful, those who couldn't? Trash. But just as the monster closed the gap, he jolted to a halt, arm raised, finger trembling. "You! How is this possible?" The towering brute finally cleared the dust, only to gape as the slash across Alex's side stitched itself closed in seconds. The white-haired stranger, who warps space like a living singularity, strikes with the pull of a collapsing star, and stands with an indomitable frame, now revealed a healing speed that mocked every known super repeater faster than Legends. faster than fear itself, flipping the entire battle on its head and leaving the giant to realize he wasn't facing prey, but a contender for the Omega throne. The spatial blade tore through the air, devouring energy with every slash butt. Its power and speed were monstrous. Alex had braced himself, yet still couldn't dodge in time. The blade bit deep into his arm, slicing clean to the bone. 1 second slower, and his entire arm would have been gone. Blood sprayed, but Alex didn't flinch. His eyes burned with focus as the reverse technique kicked in, knitting muscle and sealing flesh at a supernatural pace. Across the battlefield, the brute who'd struck him watched in disbelief as the wound mended before his eyes. The impossible sight shattered his will to fight. Panic took hold. With a grunt, he hurled the dwarf he'd been gripping straight at Alex and turned to flee, barking out a desperate order, "Stop him for me!" The brute, stripped of courage, turned and bolted, better to gamble on Stryker's wrath than face the walking nightmare before him. Alex's six eyes flared, locking onto the dwarf hurtling through the air. He couldn't use his spatial blade anymore. Alex saw it clear as day. Calmly, Alex raised his hands. The moment froze. The dwarf's eyes widened with hopeless dread, then the pressure hit. Flesh shredded, bones ruptured, blood erupted in a silent storm. Not a drop touched Alex. The crimson mist hung suspended midair, bullets frozen beside it, caught in the untouchable void that was his infinity. Without a word, Alex turned to face the direction the coward fled. Gunfire erupted from all sides as soldiers opened fire, but the strong man had already vanished into the distance. If he didn't act now, that brute would vanish without a trace. So Alex made his choice. He locked eyes on the fleeing man, raised his hand with precision, index finger glowing with fierce resolve, and with the calm of a storm before it breaks, he spoke. "Curse technique reversal." Red. Do you like this personality?